Hello and welcome to this final session on nervous conditions by Tsitsi Dangarembga. We are going to discuss the last two chapters, chapter 9 and 10 of this very interesting novel. I've already done 4 very long sessions on on the book, the earlier chapters, and if you have not seen those videos, you must go and do that in order to understand this session. And okay, and you can also let me know which novel should I do next, right? So later on in the comments you can let me know which novel can I do next. But for now we go on and discuss the last session of this novel, Nervous Conditions, and these are the main points that come up in the last few chapters. There are nuns who come to the mission from the Catholic school Sacred Heart, and they come to the mission and they offer Tambu an opportunity to go to this multiracial convent school for her higher education, an opportunity which leaves Tambu greatly excited, but everyone has different reactions, like Nyasha. So we are going to discuss what does everyone think, what does Nyasha think, what does Baba Mukru think, what does Tambu's mother think, and above all, what does my guru think. When Tambu says goodbye to her friends, the refrain that she hears from all her friends is "Don't forget us." What is this danger? Why this refrain of don't forget us? This instruction of not to forget, which is also there coming from Nyasha. From there we move on to Nyasha's letters and also to her illness. Right, we are also going to discuss her illness later on. So that is going to be a part of our today's lesson. And then of course Tambu's mother's diatribe or her quarrel against Englishness that we see, which kind of now makes sense as we go on with the novel, and how Nyasha's warnings, Nyasha's thoughts echo Tambu's mother's. And then of course we just end with the last glimpse of Tambu at Sacred Heart. So let's begin with this part, that is when the nuns come and they offer an opportunity for Tambu to go to the Sacred Heart, the school, the convent multiracial school with very few Africans, mostly it would be the white students. Of course nobody is happy about it initially, neither does Nyasha. Tambu of course is extremely excited. After all, she has been offered a scholarship, right? She has been offered a scholarship. It is like a recognition of her abilities. But let's read everyone the reactions that we see in the family. So here she's talking about the nuns, right? So I was delighted that white people for that matter, thought my background was interesting. So we see how Tambu slowly is also becoming a colonized subject, just like her uncle Baba Mukru. So kind of seeking approval of the whites. She's flattered when they pay attention to her. I thought I should tell them about Baba Mukru as well, to show that my family had a progressive branch, but they were more interested in my own father and my life on the homestead. So they are not interested, the missionaries are not interested in progressive Africans. They are interested in the poor Africans. They are interested in the Africans that they could civilize as colonizers, right? So which clearly a girl of Tambu's age does not recognize. She still feels the need for the approval. She's still seeking the approval of the whites. She still feels the need to impress them. And of course she goes through the exam and gets the scholarship to the school. Perhaps her poverty is one of the reasons that she gets the scholarship. Perhaps Nyasha and the progressive background, Nyasha would not have been chosen for the scholarship. It is because of her poverty perhaps that she gets that scholarship. And this is what Nyasha thinks. She thought there were more evils than advantages to be reaped from such an opportunity. So going to the school, going to the Catholic school is going to be even worse than being at a mission school. So going to Sacred Heart is going to be even worse. It would be a marvelous opportunity, she said sarcastically, to forget who you were, what you were, and why you were that. It is something that Nyasha has lived through, right? When she went to England, she forgot what she was, an African, a Rhodesian. So this is what she cautions Tambo about, that it is an opportunity, it would make you forget who you were, what you were, and why you were that. The process, she said, was called assimilation, and that was what was intended for the precocious few who might prove a nuisance if left to themselves. Right? Why is Tambu chosen? Because Tambu is intelligent. If she is left to herself, she would ask disturbing questions. She would upset the world, this very ordered, colonized world. She would ask uncomfortable questions. So, for that, they have to school, brainwash, assimilate people like Tambu, people like Baba Mukru, people who are too intelligent that they could ask uncomfortable questions. They could make the situation uncomfortable for white colonizers. So, whereas the others who cared about the others. So, they made a little space into which you were assimilated. So, there is a little space for the elites. So, the whites make a little space for the elites, an honorary space in which you could join them, and they could make sure that you behaved yourself, right? It is to tame them, to colonize the intelligent white and create an elite segment of the colonized society which would support the white rule. I would be comfortable in such a position, she remarked nastily, because look how well I got on with Baba Mukru, right? So she gets a little nasty because she points out, look, you are always trying to be a good girl. You know, you're obedient instinct. You don't really think, and that's why you could be comfortable in this position. Remember, but Tambu has revolted once. She has shown streaks of rebellion earlier on in refusing to go to the wedding of her parents. But for now, Nyasha warns her and then nastily says that, okay, if you could be comfortable because you are used to listening to others and obeying others rather than thinking independently. So that is Nyasha's response. Now let's talk about Baba Mukru. So Nyasha fears that Tambu would become, just like she's a good girl, she would become a good colonized girl, right? She would become a good colonized subject, good colonial subject. What does Baba Mukru think, who himself is a good colonial subject? So this is what Baba Mukru says. It is not a question of money, although there would still be a lot of expense on my part. You have your scholarship, so the major financial burden is lifted. But I feel that even that little money could be better used. For one thing, there is now a small boy at home. So there is a boy to whom the money should go rather than going to the higher education of a girl, right? And Baba Mukru again shows his generosity, that he's putting away money for Jeremiah's family, and Tambu should be grateful rather than going ahead and in pursuit of education. So that's what he says. Having finished your Form 4, you will be able to take your course, whatever it is that you choose. Get a job. Don't get a career, get a job, right? That's what it basically means. In time, you will be earning money. You will be in position to be married to a decent man and set up a decent home. In all that we are doing for you, we are preparing you for this future life of yours. You know, when she gets married, Jeremiah is going to get bride price, a bride price of an educated girl. And I have observed from my own daughter's behavior that it is not a good thing for young girls to associate too much with these white people, right? So although he has grown in stature, he has grown in status, in society, he's become an elite because of the white people, he still feels that it's not good for girls to have too much freedom, because it stops them from becoming decent women. And this is something that would antagonize Nyasha, and here it makes it irritates Tambu also. Seeing marriage in a way as a goal, being put as a goal for her life. So, this is what Baba Mukru thinks, that she should not go. One, the money should go to for the young boy, the young infant, that brother that she now has, and secondly, she can start earning money. She can get a job. She can start earning money, and the father, once she gets married, the father is going to get some money as a bride price. So that is the course that he has charted for Tambu. So Tambu's reaction is also there, and it clearly shows that however much she is educated, marriage still remains is still constitutes a horizon for the women characters. Now, what does my guru think? Now, my guru, remember, she has got this independence, she has got her voice back, and although she never really did leave, and she comes back and takes a position in her husband's household where she is clearly still not an equal, but she still has a voice of her own, right? She has found a voice of her own, and here she disagrees. Here she clearly disagrees with Baba Mukru, and here we see the solidarity which was absent in these few chapters. In the end, we see some glimpse of solidarity amongst women that was absent earlier. And she says, I don't think that Tambudzai will be corrupted by going to that school. Don't you remember when we went to South Africa, everybody was saying that we, the women, will lose? It wasn't, and Baba Mukru winces at this explicitness. The way my guru is talking about the unpleasant truths of life, but she continues. It wasn't the question of associating with this race or that race at that time. People are prejudiced against educated women. That's why they said we weren't decent. That was in the 50s. Now we are into the 70s, and I'm disappointed that people still believe the same thing. So there is a fundamental distrust against the women. Remember earlier on the last lecture, man can never know with the daughters, and now educated women, it's even worse. So after all this time, when we have seen nothing to say it is true, I don't know what people mean by a loose woman. Sometimes she is someone who walks the streets, sometimes she is an educated woman, sometimes she is a successful man's daughter, or sometimes she is simply beautiful. Loose or decent, I don't know. All I know is that if our daughter Tambudzai is not a person now, she never will be, no matter where she goes to school. And if she is decent, then this convent should not change her. As for money, you have said that she has full scholarship. It is possible that you have other reasons why she should not go there. So she kind of directly tackles Baba Mukru's reason. And she kind of negates. She says that question of decency and question of money are the ones I've heard, and so these are the ones that I talked about, and she kind of clearly says that they are not valid. And Baba Mukru does not really know how to answer that. So they go to the homestead, to Jeremiah and Tambu's mother. So let's see their reactions now. When Baba Mukru goes, my guru this time flatly refuses to spend another Christmas. So as I said, she's found a new position, she's found a voice of her own, she's making these decisions for herself. Baba Mukru presents the arguments to Jeremiah, and as we see, Jeremiah has really no opinion of her own, he has really no thought of her own, and leaves it to, and quite disgustingly, it's a little disgusting the way he treats Baba Mukru, the deference with which he treats Baba Mukru, head of the family, princeling, we thank you, right? And Baba Mukru takes it all as if it is due to him. We see as all these characters present their points of view, we also see the glimpse of what Tambu feels, and these are the goals that she says, what I need I would take with me, the rest I would discard, right? So she's already talking about things that I love I would take with me, I would keep in my mind and heart and rest I would discard. It would be worth it to dress my sisters in pretty clothes, feed my mother until she was plump and energetic again, stop my father making a fool of himself every time he came into Baba Mukru's presence. Money would do all this for me. With the ticket I would acquire attending the convent, I would earn lots of it. And so it is agreed that she would go, something that her mother again has no say into it, howsoever much she disagrees. So the mother, who has no say, then she falls ill, and Lucia has to come once again to look after her. So let's once hear the mother and then we go on. And here's the mother. Tell me, Tambudzai, does that man want to kill me with his kindness, fattening my children, only to take them away like cattle are fattened for slaughter? Tell me why, daughter. What will I, your mother, say to you when you come home? A stranger full of white ways and ideas. It will be English all the time. And she gives an example of the cousins. She talks about Nahamo. But the thing is that alienation, full of white ways and ideas, forgotten your language, forgotten your bonds with the family. So that's why the mother blames whiteness, right? She blames whiteness. Because that would come dividing my children and ruling my life, right? So even when she is not, the whiteness kind of shaping her life as a mother, taking over her life as a mother, and she declines and she eats less and less till Lucia comes and takes charge. Lucia takes control. She rejects Texture for now to be with her sister. So as I said, there is some kind of solidarity that is coming up, where women are thinking of each other rather than the men in the household, the husbands and sons and lovers and so on. So Lucia comes, and Lucia is also supportive of Tambu going to Sacred Heart. So don't forget us, this refrain that we hear not only in these reactions, but also when she meets her friends who do not talk to her earlier on. There is already a distance between them. They are jealous, or they feel a little alienated because she has taken a leap in her life, and they do not feel the connection anymore. But when they get playing, they find a common ground of friendship. The refrain, the goodbye that they say is, there is a repeated refrain there, that don't forget us. And that don't forget us is a real looming danger that everyone is aware of, whether it is a mother, whether it is Nyasha, and now the friends. Don't forget us. And that is really what everyone is conscious of, that she would go there and she would become a part of that community, and she would forget her friends, her family, where she comes from, as Nyasha says. And this to an extent really does happen when they get to the school. And she becomes a part of the routine. Nyasha keeps on writing to her, and it is Tambu who is very tardy in responding to Nyasha's letters. Even when there's a letter, the letters become disturbing, and she gets a hint of Nyasha's deteriorating condition. She still does not treat it as urgently. The cousin, remember, they had become very close friends, sisters, but now she's already a little distanced. She's already caught up with her life in the school, and Nyasha's condition is progressively is progressively declining. Let's read. We see at the end of chapter 9 that Tambu has become a fairly independent, she has acquired a fairly independent way of thinking. She is not influenced by Nyasha or her mother, or even by Baba Mukru. He goes on and on with the accusation. So this is the end of chapter 9, where it is about again Nyasha sharing her loneliness, or her the coming loneliness when Tambu has left. And her conflict with the father, with Tambu, and she says that Tambu being there made things bearable, Tambu, but now that she's going to go, it's going to be even difficult for her to stay back in the family. And Tambu is becoming, no, we don't see Tambu judging Nyasha anymore. She's a little more independent in her thinking, a little less stricken by her uncle's greatness. So when they arrive at the school, there is a subtle there is a subtle form of a segregation where Africans are all put in one dormitory. They are kind of segregated and labeled African instead of individual. And Nyasha is quite insightful when she says, "Bye, have a good time, you African," as if Tambu is no longer an individual in this new school. She is, her identity is a racial identity now. So Tambu, again, as I mentioned, there is an alienation and there is a distance between Tambu and Nyasha growing when Tambu has been at Sacred Heart, and they are not able to, when Tambu comes visiting, they are not able to get together immediately. There's a lack of warmth. Tambu has not been replying to the letters. Nyasha's condition is declining till in the end, till in the night when they are together. Nyasha lets go of the rage, she rants and she kind of lets go of her rage, the rage inside her. "Why do they do it, Tambu?" she hissed bitterly, her face contorting with rage. "To me and to you, to me and to you and to him." Him is a father. "Do you see what they have done? They have taken us away. Lucia, Texture, all of us. They have deprived you of you, him of him, ourselves of each other. We are groveling. Lucia for a job, Jeremiah for money. Daddy grovels to them, we grovel to him. I won't grovel. No, I won't. I'm not a good girl. I'm evil. I'm not a good girl," and so on. So who's they here? Who's they? The colonial machinery that has created so much want and impoverishment that people like Lucia, women, Jeremiah, the poor, they have nothing to do but grovel. And even Baba Mukru grovels to them. He's a good colonized subject, so he grovels to them, and then we all grovel to him. And she says, "I will not grovel. I'm not a good girl. I will not fit into this system which has taken me away from us, from my roots." The noise brought Baba Mukru and my guru running. They could do nothing, could only watch. Nyasha was beside herself with fury. She rampaged, shredding her history textbook between her teeth. Their history, fucking lies, their bloody lies. So their history, things that they have told us, all untrue. They have trapped us, and I won't be trapped. I'm not a good girl, I won't be trapped. It's kind of a nervous breakdown for Nyasha. And yet he's caught. Suddenly, "I don't hate you, Daddy," she said softly. "They want me to, but I won't. I'm tired," and and then she turns to her mother. "Look what they have done to us. I'm not one of them, but I'm not one of you, right? I'm not one of them. I'm not a white. I don't belong to England. I'm not one of them, but I'm not one of you. I cannot be a colonized subject. I cannot grovel. I cannot bow. But at the same time, I'm not like Tambu, who remembers her roots, who has a family, because my language and my customs and my traditions are also taken away from me." And so in a way, there is a vacuum, because I will not fill that vacuum that is left by my traditions and my customs with the knowledge of Englishness. So Nyasha's nervous breakdown. Next day, the parents take her to the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is actually quite racist, but the psychiatrist said that Nyasha could not be ill, that Africans did not suffer in that way we had described. She was making a scene. We should take her home and be firm with her. So this is a psychiatrist who is a white psychiatrist, and then they try to see a black psychiatrist, but there is none. So even denying that complexity to her, she's just making a scene. She cannot suffer in this way. That denying that complexity to her, because she's a girl and she's a African. More than that, Africans did not suffer in the way we had described. So it is they're primitive. They do not have these complex thoughts. But she does go to a clinic for a while and her condition improves. Tambu is happy to be with the sister, with the Nyasha. I felt Nyasha needed me, it was true, but I had to go to school, right. So she has to go to, she visits her family before she goes to back to the school. Let's visit her and let's see what her mother has to say now. Tambu has no explanation for Nyasha's breakdown. The psychiatrist has no explanation for Nyasha's breakdown, but my mother had, and she was very definite. It's Englishness. It will kill them all if they aren't careful, she snorted. Look at them. That boy Chido can hardly speak a word of his own mother's tongue, and you'll see his children will be worse. Running around with that white one, isn't he? The missionary's daughter. His children will be a disgrace, and so on. But it is the Englishness, both of them, it's Englishness. It's a wonder it hasn't affected the parents too. So what kills is Englishness, colonization of the mind, not just of the country, and that's what missionaries, that is what education is doing, colonizing the minds, and that's what is killing, not oppression, physical oppression, but mental oppression that is killing. So the novel moves towards the end, and in a way Tambu takes all this. She went on like this for quite a while, going on about how you couldn't expect the ancestors to stomach so much Englishness and so on. So Tambu observes all this, and here we move on towards the end. She thinks, be careful, she said, and I thought about Nyasha and Chido and Nahamo, who had all succumbed, and by my own creeping feelings of doom. Was I being careful enough, I wondered, for I was beginning to have suspicion, no more than a seed of suspicion, that I had been eager to leave the homestead and embrace Englishness of the mission, and after that the more concentrated Englishness of Sacred Heart. The suspicion remained for a few days, during which time it transformed into guilt, and then I had nightmares about Nahamo and Chido and Nyasha 2 nights in a row. That would tell you how much my mother's words disturbed me. So, but yet the term time is approaching and she has to go back. How is Tambu when she goes back? And this is again Tambu, who's her older self, remembering how she went back to Sacred Heart after that. I was young then and was able to banish things, but seeds do grow. Although I was not aware of it, no longer could I accept Sacred Heart and what it represented as a sunrise on my horizon. Quietly, unobtrusively, and extremely fitfully, something in my mind began to assert itself, to question things and refuse to be brainwashed, bringing me to this time when I can set down this story. It has been a long and painful process to me, that process of expansion. It was a process whose even stretched over many years, and that will fill another volume, but the story I have told here is my own story. The story of 4 women whom I loved and are men. This story is how it all began. So the Tambu who goes back is not the Tambu who's comfortable embracing Sacred Heart and all that it represents. There is already a discomfort, there is already an unease which would make her careful, and it kind of shows the way forward, that it is more possible with that discomfort, with her mother's word, with Nyasha's condition on her mind, that she would be more careful. Sacred Heart does not represent the sunrise on my horizon, right? It does not represent all the good things. There are doubts in her mind, and in those doubts we see independent consciousness coming into being. So with that we come to the end of nervous conditions. So with that we come to the end of nervous conditions. We have covered most of the book, and it is a second text of African literature that we have done after Chinua Achebe's A Man of the People, and we see in both the texts the confluence of gender, patriarchy and education in post-colonial societies. How gender discrimination, which is kind of a universal feature, we saw it in Victorian novels like Jane Eyre, the gender imbalance, the imbalance of power in terms of gender, which is a feature in all, but here it kind of intensifies with the confluence of colonialism and colonial education. In Tambu's uneasiness, maybe there is a way forward, her uneasiness with her surroundings, her colonial education, maybe there is a way forward. So, with that we come to an end. Do let me know if there is any particular book that you want me to cover. I would be happy to do that, and goodbye, all the best. I hope these lectures did make this very fascinating novel a little more accessible to you. It would be a good idea to read it once again. Okay, goodbye and thank you.